This is for women who have been holding everything together and quietly wondering when it became this heavy. The price tag on the sweater was scratching my neck. I was standing in the checkout line at Marshall's, holding a cardigan I didn't really need, and all I could feel was that tiny piece of plastic digging into my skin. I reached back to tuck it in. It kept popping out. It was just a tag. But standing there at 2:30 on a Thursday afternoon, I felt my throat tighten. It wasn't about the tag. I was 48 years old. 2 kids living across the country. A marriage that looked fine from the outside. A job I'd had for 12 years. A routine I could do in my sleep. And this constant, dull, heavy feeling that I was completely alone inside my own life. It's not the kind of loneliness you'd expect. It's not being alone on a Saturday night. It's worse. It's being surrounded by people and feeling like nobody actually sees you. It's answering "I'm fine" when someone asks how you are, because you don't even know how to explain what you feel anymore. It's realizing you stopped sharing things because nobody seems genuinely interested. I put the sweater back and left empty. On the drive home, I remembered a conversation with my younger daughter 3 weeks earlier. She'd called, excited about something at work, and I tried to engage, but she cut me off mid-sentence. "Mom, you're doing that thing again." "What thing?" "That voice, like you're not really listening." She was right. I wasn't. I was there, holding the phone, but my mind was somewhere else. Running through a mental list of things I needed to do, worries I carried alone, thoughts I didn't share with anyone. When I hung up, I stared at my phone for maybe 5 minutes. I thought, when did I become this person? But here's the part almost nobody talks about. This loneliness doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in slowly, like dust settling. You don't notice it until one day you look around and realize you're covered in it. Linda was 53. She told me this in an online group for women our age. She said her loneliness started when her youngest left for college. Suddenly the house was too quiet. Her husband worked late most nights. Her friends were busy with their own lives. She spent her days cooking for 2, cleaning empty rooms, watching shows nobody talked to her about. One day, she realized she'd gone 74 hours without having a real conversation with anyone. 74 hours, she counted. It wasn't because she was isolated. It was because every conversation she had was surface level. "How are you?" "Good, you?" "Good, thanks." And that was it. She said she started talking to herself. Not in a crazy way, just small comments while she cooked, while she watched TV, while she folded laundry. Because the silence was getting too heavy. I understood completely. Loneliness after 45 isn't about being physically alone. It's about not being known. It's about feeling like the deepest parts of you, your fears, your doubts, your hopes don't have anywhere to exist anymore. And here's what nobody prepares you for. The older you get, the more people assume you're fine, because you're an adult, because you have experience, because you've been through so much, that supposedly you should know how to handle this, but you don't. For days after the store incident, I was at the pharmacy counter waiting for a prescription. The woman ahead of me was chatting with the clerk about something. Trivial, the heat, traffic, whatever. And suddenly she laughed. A real laugh. Spontaneous. Genuine. I stood there watching her, trying to remember the last time I'd laughed like that. I couldn't, and that's when it hit me. I wasn't just lonely. I was disconnected from myself. Because when you spend so much time being functional, mother, wife, employee, friend, daughter, you forget to be you. And when you finally have time for yourself, you look inside and don't recognize who's there. Patricia was 46. She told me she realized this when she went on a solo weekend retreat. Everyone had said it would be transformative. Time for yourself, they said. But when she got there, sat in her room, looked out the window, she didn't know what to do with herself. She didn't know anymore what she liked, didn't know what made her happy, had spent so long taking care of everyone else that she'd forgotten how to take care of herself. And the worst part? She felt guilty about it. Guilty for not enjoying that time alone. Guilty for feeling like she should be home doing something useful. Guilty for simply existing without a purpose. That's what loneliness does to us after this age. It's not just about being alone. It's about not knowing who you are anymore when nobody's asking anything of you. But here's the truth. It took me a long time to understand. This pain has a reason. And it's not the reason you think. The reason isn't because something's wrong with you. The reason is because something fundamental has shifted, and nobody warned us it would feel like this. I was sitting in my car outside the grocery store last month, and I just stopped, engine off, bags in the trunk. And I sat there for 20 minutes, watching people walk in and out. And I thought, when did I become invisible? Not invisible, like people don't see me. Invisible like they see right through me. Like I'm a function, not a person. The woman who picks up groceries. The mom who sends care packages. The wife who keeps things running, but me. The actual me. She disappeared somewhere along the way, and nobody noticed. Not even me. Deborah was 51 when she wrote this in the group. I realized I had bought myself anything in 6 months. Not clothes, not books, nothing. I bought things for the house, for my husband, for my grown kids when they visited. But nothing for me, because I couldn't remember what I wanted. I read that 3 times, because I hadn't bought myself anything either. Not really. The sweater at Marshall's. That was the first time I'd even looked at something for myself in weeks. And I couldn't even do that without feeling guilty about the price, the practicality, whether I'd actually wear it. When did wanting something for myself become so complicated? Here's what I started noticing. The loneliness gets worse in transitions, when your body changes, and nobody talks about how strange it feels to not recognize yourself in the mirror. When your kids don't need you the same way, and you don't know what to do with all that love you still have. When friendships fade because everyone's too tired or too busy or too buried in their own stuff. You're not lonely because you don't have people. You're lonely because the connections you have don't reach the places that hurt. I had coffee with an old friend 2 weeks ago. We used to talk about everything, but we sat there for 90 minutes and talked about her daughter's wedding, my new dishwasher, a show we'd both watched. Surface stuff. Safe stuff. When we hugged goodbye in the parking lot, she said, "We should do this more often." I said, "Definitely." We both knew we wouldn't. Not because we don't care, but because somewhere along the way, we both learned to keep the real stuff inside. The messy stuff. The stuff that doesn't have easy answers. And that's the thing about loneliness at this age. It's not always about absence. Sometimes it's about presence without connection. Being in the same room as your husband, but feeling miles apart. Talking to your kids, but holding back the hard things because you don't want to burden them. Smiling through lunch with friends while carrying weight they can't see. Rachel was 49. She said it hit her during a family dinner. Everyone was there: her husband, her 2 sons, her daughter-in-law, her grandbaby. The table was full, loud, warm, and she felt completely alone. She was serving food, refilling drinks, cleaning up spills, making sure everyone had what they needed. And in the middle of all that noise and movement, she had this thought. Does anyone here actually know me? She didn't mean know her name or her role. She meant know her. The woman who wakes up at 3 a.m. Sometimes with this ache in her chest she can't explain. The woman who drives past her old neighborhood and cries for reasons she doesn't fully understand. The woman who feels both too much and not enough at the same time. That woman. Did anyone know her? The answer scared her. I think that when the loneliness becomes unbearable, when you realize you unknown even to the people closest to you, not because they don't love you, but because you've spent so long being what they need, that you forgot to show them who you are, and maybe you forgot yourself. Last Tuesday, I was folding laundry in the bedroom. My husband was downstairs watching something on TV. The house was quiet, except for the low murmur of voices from his show. And I had this sudden, sharp desire to walk downstairs and say, I feel so alone. Even when you're here, especially when you're here. But I didn't. I folded his shirts, put them in his drawer, went back to the laundry basket. Because how do you say something like that without it sounding like an accusation? How do you explain that you can share a bed with someone for 23 years and still feel like you're sleeping alone? You don't. So you don't say anything. And the loneliness grows. Brenda was fit. She told us she started keeping a journal, just to have somewhere to put the thoughts she could unsay out loud. She said it helped at first, gave her a place to be honest. But after a few months, she read back through the entries and realized something that broke her heart. She was having deeper conversations with a notebook than with any person in her life. That's when she knew something had to change. But here's what nobody tells you. Knowing something has to change and knowing what to change are two completely different things. I didn't need someone to fix my life. My life was fine, good, even I had everything I was supposed to want. But I was still lonely, and that made it worse. Somehow. Because if loneliness came from having nothing, at least there'd be an obvious solution. Get out more, meet people, join a club. But this loneliness, it lived inside a full life, inside a functioning marriage, inside group chats and family dinners and work meetings. It lived in the space between who I used to be and who I'd become. Between who people thought I was and who I actually was when nobody was watching. And the scariest part was realizing I didn't even know who that person was anymore. Karen said something in the group last week that I can't stop thinking about. She said, I spent 30 years being needed, and now that I'm not needed the same way, I don't know what I'm for. I sat with that sentence for a long time, because that's it, isn't it? We built our identities around being necessary, around being the person people came to, relied on, needed. And when that shifts, when kids grow up, when parents pass, when marriages settle into routine, when work becomes automatic, we're left holding this question: who am I when nobody needs me? And the silence that follows that question. That's where the loneliness lives. But something unexpected happened when I finally started asking that question out loud. I said it to a woman I barely knew. We were both waiting for a yoga class to start, a class I'd signed up for on impulse, thinking maybe movement would help. She was setting up her mat next to mine, and she made some comment about how long it had been since she'd done this. And I don't know what came over me, but I just said it. I feel like I don't know who I am anymore. She stopped, looked at me, and said, oh, thank God, me too. We didn't even take the class. We sat in her car in the parking lot for an hour and a half, and we talked, really talked. About the loneliness nobody mentions, about feeling invisible in our own lives, about not recognizing the woman in the mirror, about loving our families and still feeling empty. And for the first time in maybe years, I didn't feel alone. Not because she fixed anything. Not because she gave me answers, but because she saw me. The real me. The messy, confused, lonely, searching me. And she didn't look away. That was 4 months ago. Her name is Jenna. She's 52. We meet for coffee every Thursday now. And here's what I've learned. The loneliness doesn't disappear, but it gets lighter when you stop carrying it alone. I started doing something small after that. Every time I felt the impulse to say I'm fine when I wasn't, I tried to tell the truth instead. Not the whole truth I am. Not standing in the produce section unloading my entire emotional state on the cashier, but small truths. Actually, I'm having a rough week. Honestly, I'm struggling with something. I'm not okay, but I'm working on it. And you know what happened? People responded. Not everyone, but enough. My daughter called me 2 weeks ago, and instead of asking about her, I told her I'd been feeling disconnected. There was this pause on the line, and I thought I'd made a mistake. But then she said, "Mom, I've been waiting for you to say something real for so long." We talked for 2 hours. My husband and I had the conversation I'd been avoiding. I told him I felt lonely in our marriage. He got defensive at first. "What do you mean? I'm right here." But I kept going. I told him I needed him to know me again, not just live next to me. It was hard. It's still hard, but we're trying. We're actually trying. And that's the thing I want you to understand. This doesn't have a perfect ending. I'm not going to tell you, I found myself in some miraculous moment, and everything is different now. But I am different. A little bit. 1% at a time. Susan was 47. She told us she started doing something radical. She blocked off 1 hour every Sunday, just for herself. No phone, no obligations, no guilt. She didn't do anything productive. She sat on her porch. She listened to music. She drew terrible sketches in a notebook. She just existed the first few times. She said it felt wrong, wasteful, selfish. But after a month, she said something shifted. She started remembering what peace felt like, started hearing her own thoughts again, started recognizing the woman she used to be underneath all the roles she'd been playing. It was just an hour, but it was hers. I tried it. I take mine on Saturday mornings now. I drive to this coffee shop 20 minutes from my house where nobody knows me, and I sit there. Sometimes I write, sometimes I read, sometimes I just watch people and let my mind wander. Last week I laughed at something I was reading, a real laugh, the kind that comes from somewhere deep. And I thought, there she is, the woman I thought I'd lost. She's still here, just buried under years of being what everyone else needed. Here's what I know now. The loneliness after 45 is UNT, a sign that something's wrong with you. It's a signal that something's trying to emerge, a truer version of yourself, a version that's been waiting patiently while you took care of everything and everyone else. And she's tired of waiting. Nicole was 56 when she said this in the group, and I wrote it down. I spent so long being afraid of being alone. But what I was really afraid of was meeting myself again and not liking who I'd become. She paused. Then she said, "But I do like her. She's tired and scared and bruised. But she's still here, and she's stronger than I thought." I read that every time I feel the loneliness creeping back, because it does creep back. This isn't a one-time fix. Some days are harder than others. Some days I still feel invisible. Still feel unknown, still feel like I'm going through the motions. But there are also days now when I feel connected, when I have a real conversation, when I do something just because I want to, when I look in the mirror and recognize the woman looking back at me. Those days are increasing, slowly, but they're increasing. And I think that's what healing loneliness actually looks like at this age. Not a dramatic transformation. Not a complete reinvention, but small moments of recognition. Small acts of truth, small steps toward the woman you've been all along. The woman who deserves to be known, starting with yourself. I'm not there yet. I don't know if we ever fully get there, but I'm closer than I was 4 months ago, and I'll be closer 4 months from now. And if you're reading this, feeling that same heavy loneliness I felt in the Target dressing room, in the pharmacy line, in the car outside the grocery store, I want you to know, you're not broken. You're not too much or not enough. You're not alone in feeling alone. This is real. What you're feeling is real. And it's okay to not be okay with it. Say it out loud to someone. To anyone, start there. One true sentence. One real moment. One small step toward being seen, because you deserve to be known fully, deeply, truly, especially if the first person who needs to know you is you. If this story resonated with you, I want to hear from you. Share your experience in the comments below. Your pain, your truth, your small victories. You're not alone in this. And please, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Every subscription helps us reach more women who need to hear not the only ones feeling this way. Let's build this community together. You matter, your story matters, and I'm here listening.